गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। नीलाम्बुजश्यामलकोमलाङ्गं सीतासमारोपितवामभागं पाणो महासायकचारुचापं नमामि रामं रघुवंशनाथं। नमामि रामं रघुवंशनाथम्। वंशी विभूषितकरा नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरादरुणबिम्बफलाधरोष्ठात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि त्वमहं न जाने। कर्पूरगौरं करुणावतारं संसारसारं भुजगेन्द्रहारं सदा वसन्तं हृदयारविन्दे भवं भवानी सहितं नमामि। भवं भवानी सहितं नमामि। देवदेव महादेव 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 देव देव 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 महादेव 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 देव देव 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 महादेव देव देवद्वारं करुणावतारं संसारसारं भुजगेन्द्रहारं सदा वसन्तं हृदयारविन्दे भवं भवानी सहितं नमामि भवं भवानी सहितं नमामि भवं भवानी सहितं नमामि सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः.
Welcome to satsang, everyone. Let's take just a moment and spend a few moments together in meditation in the beginning. Allow your eyes to close gently. And allow the awareness, the consciousness, to pull inward. Literally feel as though the senses, which are usually pointed outward, focused outward, get drawn inward. Draw them in. Allow yourself to just sit for a moment in full presence, witnessing with no judgment, no analysis. No boxes of names or reasons, but simply witnessing the presence of you right here, right now, in this breath. From the next inhalation, allow yourself to be aware of the breath as it rises through the body. So we're not forcing it, but we're gently carrying it upwards. From below the belly button, below the navel, carry your breath gently, or watch it as it rises through your solar plexus, through your rib cage and lungs, through your throat, and up to your third eye center, the Agya Chakra, just between the two eyebrows. And on the exhalations, we drop back down from the third eye. Back down to that place just below the navel. And if you can't carry your breath all the way up to your third eye, don't worry. Just take it as high as you can, easily and smoothly. Don't force it, don't suffocate yourself. Just carry it as high as it can go with ease. And then drop back down. At your own pace, allow the breath to rise from low in the abdomen up to the third eye center. On the inhalations, and then allow it to drop back down, deep into the core of our being, the core of the self, as we drop deeper with the exhalations. Rising higher and higher on the inhalations, and dropping deeper and deeper on the exhalations. Gently bring the palms together at chest level in Namaste. And rub the palms of your hands gently against each other. Place your palms over your closed eyes. And whenever you're ready, gently open your eyes into the palms of your hands and lower your hands. Welcome again to satsang. We'll start with a question or two that have come in advance, and then open it up to any questions that anyone here may have. How do I deal with negative people and friends who take all my positive energy down and I get affected by them? So this is something that a lot of people really commonly feel. is, what do I do when I'm surrounded by people who are negative? They steal my energy, they steal my peace, they steal my positivity. No one can actually steal something from you without you letting them, if it lives within you. They can steal your purse, they can steal your clothes. People can even harm the physical body. But people can't steal your energy unless you let them. Now, that doesn't mean we're complicit in it. It doesn't mean that we're purposely trying to let them steal it. It just means that we don't yet know how to protect it. No one can reach inside you and steal your energy any more than they can reach inside and steal your kidney. It's in you. What happens is that as energetic beings, we allow ourselves to be tuned, literally, by the tuning fork of the world around us. We know we're energetic, we feel the energy, but we think that we literally are tuned by something outside. And so if we are lying on a beach and the sun is shining and it's just the right temperature and we have a pina colada or a coconut water, depending on our drink of choice, in our hands, and chances are most of us energetically feel very peaceful. If we are around people who love us, who support us, who nourish and nurture us, who encourage us, again, most of us feel very peaceful, very happy, very positive. But if we are in the midst of a board meeting in which perhaps we are getting yelled at or scolded or blamed for something that is or isn't our fault, or we are around people who are negative, whether they're negative directly to me, you are stupid, you are worthless, or whether they're just generally negative. You know, the life's a bitch and then you die type of life philosophy, you know, that sort of just general negativity. Either way, we tend to feel down. And you see that as we start to begin our spiritual practice and we become more and more aware of and attuned to our energy. And one of the things that you notice in the beginning so frequently is we'll attain these beautiful states of peace, of joy, of love for the world. But then you'll hear things come out of our mouths like, I can't see that person because I'm feeling so peaceful. Or even more directive, don't come near me. I'm feeling really peaceful. I'm in a really good place, just don't talk to me. Now, the problem with that is our peace is so fragile. Our peace is dependent upon the world around us being exactly what we want it to be. So I've been sitting in my meditation room. I lit candles, I lit incense, I've had a beautiful meditation. Maybe I also had a yoga asana practice. My body's feeling good, my mind is feeling good, my heart is feeling good, which is wonderful. But it shouldn't be so fragile that when I'm no longer with the incense, I'm no longer in that corner, that suddenly my peace and my joy disappears. You don't want it to be contingent upon a particular place or a particular environment. And so the goal is, how can I maintain my energy in such a way that no one can steal it from me? That it's no longer a matter of where I can go and can't go. Now, in the beginning, yes, we do a lot of tree plantation. And when you plant trees, you have to put what we call a tree guard around the tree. It's usually a mesh wire thing. Sometimes we build larger ones out of bricks, depending on the type of tree, depending on the size and the place. But if you don't, the monkeys or the cows eat them. So for a while you need a tree guard. But after many months or a couple years, depending on the type of tree, monkeys can swing on its branches. They can't take down the tree. So the tree guard is something that's there temporarily. It's like kids when they're learning to swim, they get, floaties on and they go in the shallow end. But ultimately the goal is not that you should become, 35 and have your floaties on in the swimming pool. The goal is the floaties serve a purpose, which is to keep you afloat while you're learning to swim, such that ultimately you can take off the floaties and be in the deep end. It's not, oh, these floaties are so great, I'm just going to, just keep ordering them in a larger and larger size. They're needed for a temporary amount of time. And it's the same thing with our energetic safety. For a while, when you begin a spiritual practice, this is why people come to ashrams. This is traditionally where that practice comes from, because it helps. It helps to get out of a metropolitan area. It helps to get out of a family that's tugging on you, where there's decades of patterns that may or may not be functional. But ultimately the goal is, for most people, for some of us who are blessed enough to live here forever, it's not the goal. But for most people who come, the goal is to be able to go back into the metropolitan areas, back into the families, back into the jobs, with something that is longer lasting than the tan they got on the beach, or the peace that came from the pina colada, but something that isn't situation dependent. And we have that. We just have to realize it. And in that realizing of it is actually the strength, is the awareness of, oh wait, that peace I felt is actually in me. The tan I got was simply something that happened to my outermost layer of skin cells. But the peace was in me. There is no reason that a negative boss or negative coworker or negative neighbors or negative friends, if they're friends, choose different friends. We at least have the opportunity to choose our friends in the way that we don't always have the opportunity to choose our bosses or our colleagues or our neighbors. But if they're your friends, get positive friends. But in all the other circumstances, to realize, wait, that peace is in me. That grounding is in me. That joy is in me. Why am I giving it up? Why am I permitting myself to be so permeable that whatever's going on in the world around me just permeates inward? The cells of our body, the physical cells of our body, have a membrane. And the membrane has channels. It's not that whatever gets into your bloodstream automatically gets into the cells. It has to pass through the channels in the membrane. It has to be the right key to fit in the right lock in order to open that channel and go into the cell. If the physical cells of our body have figured out the intelligence of how to keep out things that shouldn't be in the cell, that shouldn't be impacting the cell, we need to figure the same thing out, but on an energetic level. And it really is simply a matter of intention, of recognizing that I actually do have a membrane. It's energetic, it's not physical. But there really is an energetic sort of, it moves, it dances, it's, energy the way that energy moves. But a membrane around me, over which I really do have autonomy, energetically. And to take that power back and to realize peace, joy is from within. And so when you're in a situation where there is negativity around, instead of focusing on that, to shift your focus to the inner peace. Puja Swamiji always says the goal is to be noiseless amidst the noise. It's not about find an external world that is noiseless. It's about find an inner world that is noiseless. Because that takes you everywhere. It's like that great story that they tell. I have no idea if it's true or not. But the great story that they tell of the way that shoes were invented. With the king who was going out into his kingdom, but the kingdom was full of lots of, rocks and pebbles and whatnot. And this was before shoes had been invented. And the king said to his ministers, he said, I'm going to go out and see my whole kingdom, but my feet are very sensitive, so please cover the entire kingdom with leather or fabric or cloth or whatever they used in those days. Cover it so that when I walk through the streets, I won't hurt my feet. And his very smart minister said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We're going to make you something that covers your feet. Because to cover every street of the kingdom is going to take a really long time. But to make something that covers your feet is much easier. And in the same way, rather than trying to figure out how to make the world something that doesn't hurt me energetically, what can I do for myself so that as I move through that world, I'm not hurt? How can I metaphorically cover myself with my energy so that regardless of where I'm moving, I'm not hurt? And that, again, is just intention. It's just an energetic intention and an energetic focus of realizing that the peace is in me. The joy is in me. And in those moments where there feels like there's negativity, instead of focusing on that, instead of allowing that in, focus on the inner peace instead. And then if you can, if you have the strength, allow that inner peace to permeate the outer world. So then you're going one better than the king with his shoes. Because you're actually leaving trails of softness wherever you're going. And we can do that. Because that source of the peace is within us. That source of the joy is within us. The source of positivity, of course, is within us. That's just how we think. And so keep up the practice of just remembering you are in charge of your thoughts. It's not like a cold. I was sitting on an airplane today at 6 o'clock in the morning from Bombay back to Delhi. And the man sitting in the row right behind me, I swear to God, it sounded like he had just walked off the TB ward of the hospital. And I kept thinking, oh my God, you really should be back in the hospital. I mean, he was hacking in such a way that I thought, oh God, here I am, underslept, immune system down. I'm going to walk off this plane sick. But positivity and negativity is not, thankfully, like bacteria and viruses. It's not something that you can catch against your will just by being near it. You have to actually, consciously or unconsciously, allow it in. And so we bring consciousness to it. And we literally choose not to let it in. And we have that inner immune system against it. But we just have to use it. And it takes practice, but it's absolutely doable. And then of course you keep coming back to the ashrams or to your meditation corner in your room, to the places where your batteries get charged, where your source gets plugged into the divine source, so that you feel even more connected, even more full. And then you take that into the world. So I'm going to take one more question that came in advance, and then, actually, you know what? I won't. I take it back. I'm going to open it up to, we started a little late today, so instead of taking the second one, I will open it up to anyone here who has any questions. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So give me both of them together and let's see if we can weave them together. Can we go beyond reason? Okay. Okay, and what's the second question? Okay, so can we go beyond reason in our experience of the world, in our understanding of the world? Do we have any tools other than our ability to reason, to understand the world? That was question one. And if the ultimate goal is liberation, as we were speaking about the other night, why would God create us in such a way that we need to be free? Okay. So we absolutely can go beyond reason. Reason is one of our faculties, but as you rightly mentioned, we only have the ability to use reason for things that we understand, for things that we can stick in our reason equation. So I wake up tomorrow morning with a cold. Guy behind me on the plane hacking. Okay, it makes sense. I certainly hope it doesn't happen, but with my ability to reason would be able to put those things together in a cause and effect equation. This person was mean, but I know they're going through a divorce. Again, okay, my reason is able to say, well, okay, that probably isn't about me. It's probably about the pain that he or she is going through. Again, I'm able to take pieces that I understand and put them together into a meaningful way of understanding the world. But for things that we don't understand, as he said, when we're seeing things for the first time, somebody I don't know is mean to me. You have no context. Or on many, many deeper levels, of course. Experiences, phenomena. We don't know what to do with them. Well, that's because we're trying to use reason to understand things that reason can't solve. It's like if my tool is a scale, okay? Because reason is a tool, that's all it is. So is a scale. So if what I'm trying to understand is something with a mass, a weight, I can stick it on my scale and I can say this weighs 2.34 kgs or 15 pounds or whatever it may be. But if what I'm trying to understand has no density, if suddenly what I'm trying to understand is energy or love or electricity even, or sound or light or music, right? My scale is useless. But that's because it was never meant to be a tool for everything. A scale is a tool for things with mass. Reason is a tool for things of the intellect. Reason is a tool to use to think about things. Something we can hold at an arm's length and look at it and analyze it. Reason is very helpful. But things that we feel, things that are who we are, things that defy rational thought, even things that actually can't coexist with rational thought, like meditation. You cannot simultaneously be meditating and thinking at the same time. Where there's thinking, there's not meditating. In order to meditate, you have to be able to find, even if it's momentary, a gap in the thought. If I'm thinking, I'm not meditating. Which means that we've got this whole world that reason just isn't the right tool for. Which is fine, it's great. We have other tools, like intuition, like faith, like love, like connection. Have you ever been in a situation with a loved one in which there's some conflict going on, and you're trying to use words with each other to solve this conflict, and you're speaking words and the other one's speaking words, and the words are flying back and forth, and you find that you're just, despite your best intentions, you're getting farther and farther actually from that person. But then there comes a moment in which you actually just look in each other's eye, and maybe one of you reaches out and you hold a hand, or there's a hand on a shoulder, whatever it may be. And suddenly you don't need the words because that gulf has been bridged, right? And in cases like that, reason, rationality, all of the words and the explanations and the excuses and the reasons and all of that, the logic, it may be right, but it's not actually helpful. It's not able to form a bridge. Love can form that bridge. Connection can form that bridge. And so whether it's between you and another human being, whether it's between you and yourself, whether it's you and God, whether it's you and God through the form of you and nature, whatever it may be, reason cannot build a bridge of connection. If you and I just need to work together, yeah, we could probably reasonably figure out how to do it. Even if it meant, duct tape between your office and my office, whatever it was. But if we're going to have a relationship that's deeper than just functional, reason doesn't work. If I want to understand anything about God, reason doesn't work. If I want to understand anything about myself, reason doesn't work. Simply because these are not things that fall into reason's boxes. So this is where we use other tools. Intuition. Meditation. Connection. Love. So thankfully we have tools other than reason, such that when we're presented with a new situation that reason cannot figure out, intuition frequently can. We very frequently in situations actually have a first intuition about something that we too frequently tragically disregard because we think it doesn't make sense. I have no basis for this knowledge. Our rational mind says, you can't know that. That doesn't make sense. You don't have the pieces of your equation. And so we disregard actually what our tool of intuition told us. And very frequently afterwards, we look back in retrospect and we think, oh, how interesting. I had that intuition in the beginning. I knew that. I have no idea how I knew that, but I knew it. And this is where we really need to cultivate. If our goal is to understand things other than just the reasonable world, we have to cultivate these other tools. And in terms of why would God create us who need to be liberated? Well, God didn't create us in such a way that we need to be liberated. God created us out of God. God created us as divinity, as pure, perfect divinity. But as part of the Leela, the divine drama, we also have bodies to contain, or as vehicles, rather, for that divinity. And with the body comes a brain, and with the brain comes a mind, and with the mind comes an ego, and with the ego comes desires and ignorance and falsehood, all of that. And what we need to be liberated from actually is all of that. Why did God bother giving us a body? I don't know. The only explanation that I have ever heard that feels right to me on a deep level, because it's a very reasonable question. And a very common question, like, why? If the goal is to be one with God, and if we are one with God in the core of who we are, if the truth of who we are is consciousness and one with God, why this drama? Why would God even bother? Why kick us out in a way just in order to draw us back in? Why give us ignorance just in an effort to get us to rip off the veil of ignorance? And I don't have an answer to this that I can tell you for sure. What I can share, because typically whenever you ask the question, the answer that you get from experts and leaders, religious leaders, philosophical leaders is, this is God's Leela. This is the divine drama. The answer that I have heard that feels the most deeply right to me is, it's all one. We know that. We're all God. And coming together in love feels really beautiful. Okay? Has anybody here ever found yourself, consciously or unconsciously, creating a little bit of conflict in a romantic relationship in order to ease the boredom that the relationship seemed to have fallen into, and to have a little bit of the excitement of making up, knowing that you're going to make up? Anybody ever done that? Yeah? Okay. So this is something that we do really commonly. More frequently on a sub and unconscious level than a conscious level. It's not so much, okay, what can I cause a fight about? But in retrospect, we frequently see, yeah, you're right. Things were feeling a little static, a little boring, a little same old, same old. I needed some drama. And we create it. Really, if you are honest with yourself in your introspection, you will discover all kinds of interesting ways that you are co-creating your own existence with the universe. So we do that not because there's something wrong with us, but we do that because making up feels really good. There is something really beautiful about two becoming one. Even if they had been one previously, that creation of the drama so that the two can come back is really common. And you see this also in traditions of bhakti, not conflict. But if you talk to practitioners of the bhakti path, the path of devotion, well, on the deepest, highest level, they know that God lives in them. They know that. They know that it's all God. But loving God feels so beautiful that there's this conscious non-acknowledgement temporarily of the oneness of God so that I can have the joy of loving God as something outside of myself so that I can experience the joy of coming back together. And the explanation that was given to me is that God created us to forget that we are God, so that God could experience the joy of us coming back, and so that we could experience the joy of coming back. And so the Leela is literally the drama created from one to two so that the two can come back. So that's That's the best. I cannot tell you that I guarantee that's the reason. I can just say it's the explanation that to me has felt on just a deep level the most right. The only thing that to me makes sense. Because to call it a Leela is simply to name it, but not to explain it. Yes, it is a Leela, but why the Leela? And so I love the idea of God experiencing the joy and the love of us coming back. Yes. Mainly resembles? Okay. Yeah. Yes, of course. Yes. Yeah. Well, here's the thing, and I actually really try not to go too esoteric philosophical in here. I mean, it happens sometimes, but my goal is not to. Because what I have found is that which benefits us on a deep level is that which we can implement in our lives, that which is meaningful to me in my life, regardless of my religion, regardless of my culture, regardless of my spiritual philosophy. And it's really easy to slip into the illusion of I know something because I have filed away names of different schools and what their 3 most salient points are and where this school differs from that school. And that's what we do in school. And it's important in school. But what's different about learning in life compared to learning in school is we learn in school in order to get A's on exams. I mean, ultimately, that's why we learn it. We learn in life so that our life can be different. And so for me, on a personal level, my goal in here is not to go into, well, this school of philosophy says this, and this one says this, and then they said this. But rather, what does this mean for me? And so, for me, I feel separate from God. I know that I am God. If you've been coming enough days in a row, or you've been reading or listening or meditating or through whatever path, you may already know that. But you don't feel it, or you don't feel it all the time. And how can we take that philosophy in a way that means something? Well, okay, I'm experiencing separation from God. But I know that ultimately the goal is liberation. Well, okay, how beautiful. Now what I know is I've got my path cut out for me. My path is 2 becomes 1. How I became 2 is of very little interest. In the same way that if we go back to the fight with your loved one, yeah, you could spend the next 10 years rewinding and trying to figure out, well, you started it. Well, I just made you a cup of tea. Well, you said it had too much sugar. Well, that's because, you can do that. You slammed the door a little too hard. I didn't slam it. It was the wind, but you slammed it. You can do that. But what I have found on a personal level in my life is it never gets you anywhere. You may feel intellectually and ego vindicated of like, yeah, I'm right, it wasn't the wind. But it hasn't actually gotten you anywhere in terms of that bridge between you and that person. What gets you there is the love. And so in the same way, okay, we're separate from God. How we got here, one became two, okay. Call it God's Leela. And then move on. Exactly why, exactly how. Not important. Here we are, separate. Here we are experiencing separation. Here we are stuck, not free, not liberated, not in moksha. How do we cross that bridge? And interestingly, the way is exactly the same, whether it's you and God or you and your loved one. Love. Crosses that bridge. Builds, it is the bridge, rather. When you love God, two become one. And when you love God, many, many things happen which lead to liberation. For some, that love itself is so strong that it is the liberation. We have beautiful, even historic stories of people like Mirabai, who loved Krishna so much that she literally physically merged straight into him in the temple. So, the love was it all. But even if it's not quite that strong, don't worry if you're not Mirabai, because it's special shoes to fill. But even if you're not quite there yet, what the love of God does is it automatically gives us a focus for our love, so that we stop being so focused on the false love of things like earning more money, getting more prestige, building a bigger house, having more cars, having people treat me exactly the way I want to be treated. Typically what most of us are so attached to is those things. But that causes suffering. And if I really fall in love with God, those things don't matter so much. Automatically my attention, my focus, my energy is diverted. So I automatically find a freedom from, a liberation from much of what ails most of us. And then what the love does is it opens my heart. And in that openness of the heart, in that spaciousness, grace flows. Our lack of spaciousness and lack of openness is the only thing keeping grace from our lives. But we're so focused over here, so full over here, that there isn't space. And so the love opens the heart. And when the heart opens, there's so much space created. And so it leads ultimately to that liberation. And then of course, lastly, as your love gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, you realize, oh, I am you. It's like my favorite line that Hanuman said when Lord Ram asked him, who are you? And Hanuman says, when I forget myself, I serve you. When I remember myself, I am you. But both of them are beautiful. Hanuman is worshipped as the epitome of service and love and devotion. So even in the forgetting of oneself, when it's full of love, it's still beautiful and it's still divine. And then slowly, slowly, slowly you remember. And then maybe you choose to forget because loving feels so good. And then again you remember. And then again you choose to forget because coming back together feels so good. And so the love actually leads to the liberation. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. We'll see you all tomorrow. I'm now here for a few days, which is really a wonderful gift. And if you have any questions that you feel shy to raise your hand and ask in the group, sure. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Wonderful. Sure. We'll take this as our last question. I was going to conclude, but we'll take her question and I'll explain her question in English. Yes. Yeah, I understand completely. Okay. So she actually did that in English, so I assume that everybody got that. But no, your English was fantastic. You had said you were going to do it in Hindi. I was going to have to translate, but actually you did it in English. It was great. Yes. So how you can make them be positive, of course. So in a tribal situation where people are living drastically below the poverty line, as a worker there, she's trying to make people be positive, but they're hungry. Literally, their stomachs are empty. They don't have a home. And they're telling her we can't be positive, so what to do? Well, it's really interesting situation because this brings us into, actually, what we really do already know, which is until and unless someone's most basic needs are met, they can't, usually, there are some exceptions, but they usually cannot begin to start to think spiritually. It's like, there was a philosopher, Maslow, who gave us a hierarchy of needs, right? I'm not going to go into all of it, but basically the gist being, first, you have to have your stomach full. First, you have to have a roof over your head. First, you have to have access to basic education, basic health care. Only then can you start family and connections. And then ultimately, once everything else is kind of in place, only then can we start to really have spiritual ideals. Now, we do have incredible examples of divine beings, mystics, sages, who belied this truth, who had nothing but were ecstatic. I have personally witnessed many, many people who I wouldn't call necessarily sages or mystics, but just deeply spiritual people who are far below the poverty line, but who are so deeply happy. It's actually what aside from the spiritual experience that I had on the banks of Ganga, it's what drew me to India so much when I first came here. Was here are these people who have nothing, and yet they're so happy compared to the people I grew up with who had everything and were not happy. So it's not entirely true that it's impossible, but it's usually true. And this is why it's really so important to do as much as we can to feed them, to house them, to give them education. Meditation is not a substitute for food. It's not a substitute for a house. And this is why, for example, here, we work on both levels. People say, what do you do? And I say, well, if what people need is logistic, we feed them. We educate them. We have free medical camps. We have vocational training. We'll clean the water, toilets, if what they need is a toilet. We're going to build that for them. You feed the hungry. You house the homeless. You educate the uneducated. You train the untrainable, because even though, as I said, it's not impossible to be happy and spiritually connected when you don't have those things, it's much harder. And so this is where the social work needs to be so deeply integrated with the spiritual work. If you're walking into a place where people have everything, as I always explain, on the other hand, the people whose stomachs are full but hearts are empty. Right? So for them, it's all about meditation. It's all about spiritual programs. It's all about, satsang and yoga. But for people, if what they need is a hot meal, if what they need is medical treatment, if what they need is to be able to send their children to school, it's our responsibility, I deeply believe, to give that to them. And to not be stuck with, oh, well, I teach meditation, so I realize you're hungry, but would you like to sit down and meditate? It's foolish, bordering on criminal, unless I don't have the ability to feed that person. If all I can give you is meditation because we're going to sit here hungry together, okay. I can ease the emotional suffering that goes with the physical pain in your stomach. But if I have the ability to feed you, and I don't, because I'm so stuck in my own role of a spiritual teacher or a meditation teacher, that I forget how to feed someone, I've gone really far off my path. And so I realize, of course, that you and your organization as workers in the tribal areas, you can't do everything. Obviously, no one can do everything. But what these people are telling you is right, which is it's very hard to be positive with an empty stomach. It's very hard to be positive when you're homeless. It's very hard to be positive when you're sick. And so I'm going to give you two suggestions. One is a strategic suggestion, and the other is more of a spiritual suggestion. So the strategic suggestion is there are lots of organizations, governmental and non-governmental, faith-based organizations and non-faith-based organizations that are providing logistic services in those areas. Team up with them so that in the communities, in the area where they are feeding people, they are building schools, they are putting in toilets, but people are still negative because they're still, it's human nature, and maybe they've been negative for so long that that's their personality. Maybe they've turned to alcohol, and so that's created a problem. Then along with that, your programs of spiritual positivity are going to be much more successful if you're working hand in hand with organizations who are also making sure that people's stomachs are filled and making sure that if they've got an illness, that they're getting treated for it, that they've got a roof over their head. Then you can come in and start teaching practices of gratitude and practices of positivity and all of this, which is crucial. But trying to do that in a vacuum is really difficult. So I really understand where you're coming from. So strategically, I would say find those organizations, partner with them, and work in the areas where they are working. So that as people are getting their logistic needs met, you are there to help them transform from victims, from people who don't have, from an internal experience of lack and deprivation, to an internal experience of abundance, an internal experience of security, which tragically doesn't always come simply because I now have a roof over my head. We all know plenty of people in the world who have not just one, but perhaps many roofs to choose from, who nonetheless don't feel full, who nonetheless don't feel like it's enough, who nonetheless are living in an experience of lack and scarcity. So that's the strategic one. On a spiritual level, the more you can help people touch, even for a moment, the power of love within them, get them helping other people. So regardless of what they have, and you may have to provide it, but get them serving others in some way. Get them running a kitchen that's feeding others. You may have to provide the food, but get them cooking and preparing it. Get them engaged in a way so that they feel that who they are and what they have, in terms of just their abilities, their time, their energy, is actually something that benefits others. Because from that gives us an experience of realizing, oh wow, I have something. There I thought I had nothing. I was living in lack and deprivation, but here, look, through me, this person has benefited. And on a spiritual level, if you're running spiritual programs, get them to close their eyes and meditate. Get them to touch that place of love within them. Get them to experience it, even if it's just for 2 minutes. But then, if you possibly can, feed them also. Wonderful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening, and we'll see you all tomorrow. And as I was saying, if you have questions that you feel shy to ask in person, you can get them to Lori, who will get them to me on the paper in advance. Have a wonderful night.